What is going on, team? Good morning, good morning, good morning, good evening, or good afternoon if it is for you. We are coming in with a special episode of the podcast, of which we are going to be starting this in just a couple of minutes. So if you are coming in to watch this one live, please let us know in the comments that you're here. We're out of schedule. We just decided, you know what? I'm going to do something because I think that this is a very, very good podcast and a timely podcast to be doing. So if you're coming into this one, you know the drill. Get down into the comments. Let us know that you're here. And if you do end up watching this one on replay, make sure that you hashtag replay down there in the comments. And we're going to start this in just 2 minutes, ladies and gentlemen. This is going to be a conversation around why you might not be losing weight despite feeling like you're doing everything right. So I think this is going to be pretty timely for a lot of our crew and the wider world. So you know the drill, guys. We're going to start this one in 1 minute. How's the morning been? Good morning, Maddie. Good morning, Tez. How are you, boys? I hope you're having a beautiful start to your day, guys. Especially after the lovely long weekend. Hello, Warwick. Lovely to have your company here. Marina from New Zealand. How are you, champion? I hope you're well, buddy. Good morning, Kyles. I was actually just thinking of you. Hey, Kath, you are showing up in this group, Kath. And I want to welcome all of our new ladies. Hey, Tracy, this is for you, girlfriend. So this is why it's out of order. I wanted to make sure that I come in here and serve, guys. So we're going to go live on Instagram as well for a bit of fun, and let's get this one started. On the count of 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Welcome back to the Better Body Academy podcast. This is the podcast that you come to without the dumb diets and unsustainable workout programs. Now, what we're going to do in this episode is very, very simple. I am going to answer a client question, and I'm doing this as a public live because I'm guessing that this is a question that a lot of us have. Now, let me ask you a question. Have you ever, if you've been on a transformation journey, have you ever felt frustrated? Like, I'm doing everything right. Maybe you are eating according to a meal plan. Maybe you are tracking your nutrition with MyFitnessPal. Maybe you are doing 10,000 steps a day. Whatever it is, right? You've got a plan in place. So maybe you're working with a coach and you've got a plan in place. And as far as you're concerned, you're going about this the right way. So why isn't the weight moving? Now, this is a question that's come from one of our lovely lady clients, and she's an absolute babe, by the way. She's really stepped it up over the course of the last couple of weeks. She's been really consistent in the gym. And so I was chatting to Coach Carly, one of our female coaches, and we were talking about these results over the last couple of days and trying to give some feedback to our client on why this is actually potentially happening, why it feels like I'm doing everything right, but I'm not seeing results. Now, for privacy reasons, I'm not going to share or talk about the name. However, when Carly sent me the photo, the first thing I noticed about this photo was that in the current photo, okay, we probably needed to open her eyes up with toothpicks. What do I mean by this? She looked so freaking tired in this photo that she's got a lot going on in her world right now. I'm not going to go through the details of what that are. Again, that's personal. But it was quite clear to me that her eyes were shutting, right? Super duper tired. And so what I wanted to talk about today, everyone knows that we should be trying to sleep a bit more and trying to stress a little bit less. But knowing is not doing. And I want to tell you the gravity to which this is impacting your results. And I know this firsthand. I can talk to it firsthand because it happens to me every single time I go away. every single time I go away to a little break where I get some sun and I don't wake up so early, all of a sudden, my fat loss starts to accelerate. It's like cause and effect every single time. So let me tell you what's going on here, right? When we're in the grind and we are living our life and we're under the pump, either at work or in the family, or we're looking after relatives, or there could be a million different stresses that have come up in our life. Here is what happens. Now, this is not something that you can really change. It's inbuilt in you from birth as a human. Your body perceives that the stress that you're under is some level of a threat to your survival, okay? So what happens as a consequence of this stress, so usually stress is the first catalyst. What happens when you're really, really stressed? What behaviorally happens? Generally speaking, your sleep goes out the window. Would you agree? For most people, they don't sleep better when they're stressed. So undersleeping and overstressing, or stressing at all, tend to go hand in hand, okay? So a client might be doing really well, making great progress, and then something happens in their life which derails them. They have this stress that comes in, and the stress immediately leads to less sleep. So you've got these two things at play, undersleeping and stressing. What happens hormonally in the body is that you enter what's called the flight or fight mode. When you enter the flight or fight mode, your body is preparing you because it perceives this stress that you're going through. It perceives this as dangerous to its survival. And so we have this hardwired response called the flight or fight response. And what it does is that it prepares you to run from the danger or fight from the danger that it perceives you're into. Now, of course, the danger is like overloaded by emails, a family crisis, business going bad, getting the flu. It doesn't matter what it is. The body reacts the same way. And the way the body reacts is to enact the flight or fight response. So what impact does this actually have? Predominantly, it releases the hormone cortisol. Now, you might have heard of cortisol as the stress hormone before. It's a completely natural response to have an increase in cortisol levels. Like, it's not that you're trying to avoid cortisol. Cortisol has its own natural highs and lows, as does the body have its own regulation of hormones, testosterone and estrogen and insulin, and these go through waves over the course of the day. But if you have chronically elevated cortisol levels linked to stress and sleep, undersleeping, there is an impact that has on the body, hormonally and behaviorally. So let's talk about the hormonal consequences. Although it works to enact the stress response when that cortisol level goes up, what it actually does is causes your body to mobilize blood glucose, okay? Or as we call it, blood sugar. So now, because of the fact that you're in this heightened mode, you have blood sugar circulating in the blood. Now, how do most of us stress? We don't sit there and stress, and then once the stress response kicks in, think, oh, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go for a jog, or I'm going to go to the gym. That'd be a great way to do it, but that's not what most of us do. We have the stress response, flight or fight gets enacted, blood glucose gets released into the blood en masse because the body is perceiving that you're going to need this sugar to run, right? But instead what happens is you sit there and stress more. We're stressing about the emails, we're stressing about the money, we're stressing about whatever it is that we're stressing about. And so because this blood glucose is building up, but then not being used, what typically happens is it gets stored as body fat. Does this make sense? So the spike in cortisol leads to the body going into flight or fight mode, which leads to this release of glucose into the blood. And then you're sitting there going, okay, I'm going to run this stuff off, but you don't. And instead what happens is you store it as fat. So this is the hormonal way that high levels of cortisol due to stress and undersleeping can impact your transformation, your fat loss results. So this is the first way. Now, the second way that this can happen is the one that's more obvious to you, and that is it impacts your behavior. So let's think about when you're stressed, what impact would it have on your eating? When you're stressed, do you sit there and think to yourself, oh my God, I've got to get some chicken and broccoli into me? Of course not. We're going to do something that's going to relieve the stress. And what's that going to be? Alcohol? Maybe. Or it's going to be usually a high energy food to support the stress response again, because the body is perceiving that it's under threat. So what will happen here as a consequence is you'll typically increase your intake of highly refined foods because that's what the body is craving in that moment. The second thing, and when we talk about weight management, we're talking about basically the interplay between the calories that we're burning and the calories that we're eating or drinking, right? That's what it comes down to. So let's think of the other side of the equation, the movement side. If you're really stressed and or really tired, you might be okay. And in the case of our client, she's been really consistent in the gym. However, how likely are you going to want to be to go out and move more and burn more calories doing life stuff? Probably not, because you're stressed, right? And take our client here who's remaining unnamed. Going into the gym is for building muscle. It's for building tone. It's for building your metabolism. It's not generally for burning calories unless you add a bunch of cardio on top of that. So you might be going into the gym thinking, yeah, Jace, but I'm working out. That workout is probably burning 90 to 100 calories. So then what we do is, because we worked out in the gym, thinking we burned a lot of calories, we go home because we're still stressed and we eat back those calories times 5. So can you see how this all becomes this ball of emotion, right? Which leads to impacting our hormones and our behaviors. Now, here's the thing. This is probably not new for a lot of you guys. You probably heard about this before, but the gravity to which you believe it is far less than actually is true. So what I mean by this is, you think, oh, you know what? Yeah, I've been staying up till midnight and I've been doing the books and doing these different things that I needed to do. But how unimportant is, how important really is getting enough sleep? It is massively important. I'm going to say actually that it is the number one cause. It is the top of the tree. If a client told me that they were working shift work, I instantly think to myself, this is the reason that you're overweight. Working shifts is incredibly difficult because your ability to get high quality sleep and restore those cortisol levels back down to normal levels it's fucking hard, to be honest. And so what I see happening in the case of our client here is she's getting to the gym, she's consistent, absolutely. But as a consequence of the feelings that she's feeling, completely natural, by the way, not suggesting there's anything wrong with this, but you can't just make stress go away, right? As a consequence, it's very, very likely that our behaviors are being altered as a consequence of that. Now, if you want the absolute proof of this being the case, ask any woman that is going through menopause, either pre or post, when the hormones go out of whack, right? It's not that it is impossible to lose weight. That's not what's happening. To my understanding, the science is quite clear. It's not that menopause causes weight gain. It is that the impact of hormones makes you feel like shit, makes you tired, changes your behavior, And as a consequence of those things, your behavior changes, so you eat more and move less. This isn't being critical. This is just being observational. And so when ladies say, oh, I can't lose weight because of my hormones, it's not because of the hormones directly. It's because of the impact that those hormones actually have on your behavior. Does this make sense? Give me a silent head nod or a comment to let me know this actually makes sense. So, and we've got a couple of people saying, oh my God, this was all about me this week. Yeah, Marie, this is exactly right. And Tina says, this is so me. So I'm glad that you guys are acknowledging this. So here's the hard thing. When you're in the position of the person that's feeling like they're doing everything right, you kind of get blinded by your own naivety, right? Because you're emotionally involved in the process. It's not that you are trying to deceive anyone. It's just the reality. Fat loss comes down to calorie balance. That's it. So if you're thinking to yourself, well, why is it though? Like I seem to be doing everything right. Well, there can be an impact on the hormones here, where if there is just a little bit extra calories coming in that we're not accounting for, or our activity drops by 200 or 300 calories, that can be enough to lead to the storage of fat. So what the hell do you do about this? Because at the end of the day, knowing is great. We need to do something about it. What do you do about it? So when it comes to managing stress, there's two things that we can do, two places that we can look. The first place is the thing that's causing the stress. Now, in most cases, there's just not a lot we can do here. And Ange, I love your comment. I love your comment so much. I need to go to bed earlier. Right, so here's the thing, right? Most of you guys know that I'm based in Canada, okay? So I go to bed at about 9:30, 10 o'clock most nights. And what I see is so many of you, and I know this because I can see it happening on social media, you're up at midnight and you're not a shift worker. And you'll be, oh yeah, but you're up at midnight and you're not a shift worker. So what this means is that you're not sleeping. So either one of two things are happening. Either you're moving your entire day forward, so you're going to bed at, say, midnight or 1 o'clock and you're sleeping until 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock, which is the reason you feel so fucking far behind everyone else every day, feeling like you're failing, is because it's not that you're sleeping in, it's that you're actually getting your 6 to 7 hours sleep. But by that time, the rest of the world is moving on. Kylie Whitelam, me too, Ange, but I work all hours, so it's hard. Look, if you work shift work, it is very, very difficult, right? It's almost like impossible to work around this. But I'm going to tell you, because I know how you guys think, sleep is disposable. And you know what? I'll be the first to admit that for me, it is sacrificial. But I'm just going to be really, really honest here and really, really blunt. I don't have a weight problem. Every single time I go away on holidays and get some sun and start to, inverted commas, look after myself a little bit, do a little bit of extra sleeping, my body changes within a week. It completely changes within a week. And when you're under this bombardment of stress, right, and all of a sudden you go and start to look after yourself a little bit better, I'm going to guarantee you that the results will start to kick off again. Let's go back to the management of the stress, because ultimately that's what we've got to talk about here, right? There's two parts you need to look at. The thing causing the stress and what you're doing about the stress. The thing causing the stress, we call it the stressor. In a lot of cases, the first thing you want to ask is, how can I remove the source of the stress, or how can I lessen the impact of the stress? Reduce my exposure to the stress. So examples of the stressor, let me know in the comments, guys. I'd love to hear. What of the things are most stressful in your life? What are the things that are causing the most amount of stress in your life? Is it your boss? Is it your employees? Is it finances? Is it, just trying to think, the kids? Big one. In these cases, if you run an inventory of the things that cause you the most amount of stress, the first thing you need to ask yourself is, can I delete the stress entirely or reduce my exposure to the stress? This is like a systematic way to deal with it rather than just like, oh, I'm stressed all the time. Like, how can you deal with it systematically? You ask yourself, how can I reduce my exposure to these stressful things? Now, if that's a boss or a job that you hate, well, at a certain point in time, if you can reconcile the financial component of this, quit your job and quit your boss and stop showing up for someone that you hate, right? That's the first point. But if it's your kids that are source of the stress, that's a really, really difficult thing because clearly you don't want to spend less time with your kids, right? If it's your husband or your wife, you probably don't want to say, how can I work out how to spend less time with my partner? That's probably not a good way to do it. So in the case of we're systematically, can you remove or lessen it? If not, how can you deal with it better? We call that the stress response. So we understand that the stress is going to happen. How can you deal with it better? So in my case, the biggest source of stress for me are the two things that I love the most. If I'm just being brutally honest, the two biggest things for me are business and my kids and family, my wife and kids. They're also the things that I love the most. Inadvertently, the reason that I work so hard and put myself under so much stress is for those guys which cause me the stress. So, dudes, this is a bit of a mindfuck. I'm just going to be really, really honest with you. But this then gives us the platform that if we can't do anything about deleting the stress, how do we manage it a little bit better? The first thing you have to do is be disciplined about your sleep. You have to be disciplined about your sleep. If your sleep is poor, your willpower is low. If your willpower is low, you will make terrible decisions regarding your nutrition and your activity. Fact. Give me a silent head nod if you know exactly what I mean, because that's your game. So the first thing is you must get enough sleep. Now, the second thing is, how can you put in place things that are going to make better choices for you a little bit easier? Now, I'll give you a great example of this. One of my best clients, and he's an absolute beautiful man, contacted me just over a week ago, and he said, dude, I'm about to enter the busiest time of my year business-wise, and I'm drinking over 8 to 10 beers a night. And I'm doing it because my kids are causing me stress, right? I love my kids, but by the time I'm done with them and I got them to bed, I'm just like about to fucking blow up, right? So what do I do about that? Well, in his case, he's created a habit, which is stress comes up. I know the guaranteed way for me to deal with this stress and instantly water it down, like instantly, is to drink beer. So what do you do in those cases? If it's like 1 for 1, you could, try to like put the beer in the cupboard, or like, you know what you need to do? You need to get the fucking shit out of your house. You need to absolutely remove the capacity for you to feel stress, drink beer. So if in your case, and Kyle's is saying changing the habit, if you know that your thing is I get very stressed and I eat lots of ice cream, like tub loads of ice cream, you need to get rid of the ice cream. Like, it sounds very obvious, but if you know part of this is breaking the habit, you're not saying that you're never going to eat ice cream again. What you're saying is that I'm going to try to disempower this habit day by day by day, right? And then when you start to break the habit, day 1, it's really hard. Day 2, it's really hard. Day 1 to 7 is extremely hard. But then each day you go, it just gets a little bit easier because you think of it almost like a rope with 100 strings, 100-strand rope. Each day that you break the habit, you cut one of those little strands. You cut one of those little strands. And then the strength of that habit starts to break until eventually it's not a problem for you anymore. So what you've got to do is you've got a soda habit. If you've got a Tim Tam habit, if you've got an ice cream or an alcohol habit, what you want to do is make the execution of that behavior really difficult to do. Chuck it out. Get rid of it. And I'll let you know that we put this in place with my client that I talked about here, and he has gone now 8 days without drinking because he made it very difficult. He's got to do 2 things if he wants to drink alcohol. Number 1, he needs to go out and get it from the bottle shop. Number 2, he needs to tell his wife that he's going to get alcohol, and she's going to give him a hard time about it because she's on board with it as well. So you need to break that habit. So the third thing that I would say as we wind this podcast episode up is just ask yourself how you're dealing with your stress. Number 1, are you getting enough sleep? Okay, cool. Number 2, are you trying to break those old bad habits that generally sort of go 1 and 1? But the third thing is, what proactive can you do? What can you do for yourself that you know helps you to dissipate that sleep a little bit? Now, just while you're thinking about this, I'm going to go to a comment here live. I go the opposite if I get really stressed. I don't eat. And so the issue with that, Tina, is that if you look at your calorie consumption over the course of a week, you could be having days where you're having 500 or 600 or 700 calories because you're stressed, but then because your body's depleted and so hungry, you're binging back and having 3,000 to 4,000 calories the next day. If you are doing that, that's like a mini yo-yo diet. And when you get caught in that, the message going to the metabolite to the body is, this is not good. Like, we've got a threat to survival here, Tina. It's going to reduce its metabolism, and you're going to find it really difficult to lose weight as your metabolism drives down. Getting back to the point here, what can you do? What is the 1 or 2 things that you can do that help you to try to get your stress down? Now, for me, it's going to the gym, but I'm not going to the gym to burn calories. This is an important distinction. I'm going to the gym because for me, I've linked up the habit that this is a reliable way for me to dissipate this energy that's in me that I need to get rid of, this negative energy. The other thing that I find very, very good for me and helping me sleep is I have like a lavender stick, right? Like a tube of lavender. And so every night I get into bed and I get this roll-on lavender pen thing and just like put it under my nose en masse. And then I sit there and relax and have something like a green tea, right? But I'm disciplined about getting into bed. And so for me, that relaxes me. For you, it might be getting up and doing a massage. It might be doing some stretching in the morning, doing some yoga, doing some meditation. For me, every day starts like this. I get up at about 4:30, 5 o'clock, and I have a shower, I brush my teeth, and then I do 10 to 15 minutes worth of meditation followed by stretching. Now, look, do you have to do that? No. That works for me. And I know that if I don't do that, what's going to happen is the first thing I'm going to do is check my phone. I'm going to look at someone sending me a message that they hate me about something or that they love me about something. And then I'm going to get involved in a conversation. And now, from the moment that I wake, I'm in reactivity. I'm being drawn in to operating on not my own choice, not my own hours. Does this make sense? So guys, I'm going to finish it up there. I think let's just get the nuts and bolts out of this in a summary. If you've just come into this podcast towards the end, the message you should take away from this is you need to prioritize your sleep. If you are not losing weight, it's 50% chance that part of the problem is you just don't understand how impactful sleep is and undersleeping is on your hormones and on your behaviors. You don't feel like doing shit when you're underslept. That's obvious. The second takeaway here is that things are going to happen. Like the goal of life is to not be completely de-stressed and never have stress in our life. Stress makes us productive. But while we're deep in the stress, we need to have proactive ways to be able to try to deal with it. Because if we just sit there stressing in that flight or fight mode, we're releasing all of this sugar into the blood, and you can sure as hell understand that it's going to be stored predominantly as belly fat, right? And that's not an outcome that you really want. So hopefully this has been helpful. This has been the Better Body Academy podcast coming to you with an episode that I think is really important and I'll refer back to on a frequent basis. If you've got any questions or you want to ask anything more, please let me know and we'll chat to you in the next episode. Peace out. Okay, guys. Thanks, Instagram. Love you. See you soon. Hope you're well. Ciao. All right. So to our team on Facebook, YouTube, wherever you are, do you have any questions, guys? Would you like to ask anything? Because I know that is, Warwick says, so true about the sleep. I've only just come to this realization. Look, even if you, let's just pretend you're like a big tough bloke that doesn't believe in hormones, because if you can't see them, they don't exist. That's fine. But just ask yourself this. Do you feel like doing anything when you're stressed to the tits and you're underslept? And the answer is no. Of course you don't, right? And so when you don't do stuff, you make bad decisions, weight comes on. This is why you have a coach. This is why we have an academy. Is because the science of weight loss is fucking so simple. It's actually just blindly dumb simple. However, the execution of the process is hard because every single person who will watch this or listen to this goes through a period of time when life gets really stressful. It really does. And so in those moments, if you're kind of, your default position is, fuck it, I'm out, I quit. What ends up happening is that becomes the way you do life. Fuck it, I quit, I give up. Until the next time, in a month's time, you look in the mirror and go, I hate myself still. Oh man, and this cycle gets repeated and repeated and repeated and repeated until eventually you get successful. And you get successful because you end up getting to the point where you're just like, holy shit, I'm just going to draw a line in the sand right now. Right? It's again, just keep in mind, if you're not losing weight and it's not working for you, you can get emotional and fight for the idea that you're doing everything right. And no one's calling you a liar. But the facts are, you don't lose weight if you're not in a calorie deficit. And so you've got to go to yourself, okay, this is almost impossible to do, but just step back a little bit, ask for help from your coaches, and just try to press reset. The people that are very successful in weight loss, what it is that they're able to conjure a level of emotional maturity which helps them deal with rather stressful situations that are going on in their life. No one wants to be overweight by choice. It's happening because of what's going on in our life. Would you agree? And so if we can get a bit of a grip about what's going on in our life, generally that can translate to tangible results on the scale with the circumferences in the gym. Okay, team. Awesome podcast as usual. Thanks, Kath. I appreciate you. I hope it's been helpful. Just like for the record, no part of me, guys, is saying that this is easy. No part of me. Because I am just as susceptible to stress as every single person here. So all I'm trying to do is same thing as you, same system. Can I eliminate or dull down the thing that's causing the stress? For example, today, I'll just give you an example for today. I've had my phone, it's my birthday, by the way. I've had my phone on focus mode for most of the day to try to just make sure that I'm looking at the notifications on my terms. So I'm not removing the stress, but I'm dialing the stress down a little bit. These little behavioral changes are the things that can make all the difference. All right, team. Peace out. Have a beautiful morning. I love you all. I appreciate you, and we'll chat soon.